Came around. All right. Oops.
And hello, everyone, and welcome back to On the Count podcast. I'm your host, Pedro Lugo, retired lieutenant from the Federal Bureau of Prisons. And today I have also Keone Stevens with me. Hello, Keone.
Hello, hello, hello. Long time no see.
Yes, sir. We've been kind of busy, both of us. So that's why
Right.
we have stood back a little bit on these podcasts. But we're going to pick it up again. We got some more guests coming up in the next few weeks. So definitely we got a couple things in put it in the fire. Let's say that.
The only thing I always say, and I'll constantly say to you, is that you do retirement right. I do retirement wrong. But other than that, we'll get the ball. It's an interesting topic today. We're talking about high profile inmates in federal prison. Now, the reason why we're talking about it is because just like a lot of things we talked about on this show dealing with prison, the movies and TV shows show us one thing. And
Right.
if you've never been in the system, the movies would all have us believe that every high profile inmate's got like a TV set and a wait staff, and they're eating lobster and steak while all the other prisoners are eating oatmeal, right? That's the way
Yeah.
the movies will dictate it. But we know a high valued or high, what do you actually call them? Let's get the right terminology, by the way, because I'm going to
It's actually it's a high profile inmate. That's really what it is, or high profile, or they have a different category. They're pretty much they've been on. They're well known, in because of maybe their status, the government, or they've been in a lot of people know them. Their case was big. It was in TV, so it becomes kind of a high profile kind of issue for us to deal with. And every time they move them around, we got a lot of TV or newscasters. They have a lot of information going on, and we try to avoid some of those things because the one thing we don't want to do is, especially moving inmates, we try to let nobody know when we're moving them and where we're moving them. So that's one thing we try to keep on the cover. And I'm trying to think.
Well, let's start. What I want to start to dispel it for everybody. Let's start from the beginning, right? There's one thing when Keone Stevens, who I don't know, got into a fist fight on a federal park and put someone in the hospital and he's going to prison for assault, right? And it's another thing when someone like Noriega is coming to your prison,
Oh,
or as four people that we have on this screen, just to let you guys know, Pedro worked. You worked at the Butner prison before, correct?
right.
And some of these, when we'll get into the ones that were there while you were there, but some of the most famous people that have been at the Butner prison are Kelly, the Unabomber, the Tiger King, and Bernie Madoff. So let's start in the beginning. You've talked about what happens when a prisoner comes to your facility. What's it like once you get the notification, R. Kelly, or let's say one of these were here on your tenure, right? One of these guys on the screen?
We have Bernie Madoff. We got R. Kelly
Mhm.
after I left. They got R. Kelly and the other guy. Um, the Uni bomber was he came after I left because he was very very sick. They brought him to
Mhm.
Butler's hospital because he was dying.
Mhm.
We got him, but Bernie was there for a while before he passed away.
Okay. And
Noriega
I,
was in Miami.
and I put Bernie in there just because people knew his name because of the Ponzi scheme. I'm not comparing him to the size of like a Noriega. But what's it like? What happens when there's a high profile inmate coming to your prison? Is there like a brief, like what's the steps? Is there a briefing that's done before? Are there extra measures and steps taken, or is it just business as usual?
9 times out of 10 is business as usual. Most of the stuff is not going to change. What does change if we might have somebody like, okay, let's say R. Kelly's coming, or when Bernie Madoff came, and he's going to have a lot of big profile. There's going to be a lot of newscasters. So then the executive officer will be out there dealing with the public and in the news. The warden usually doesn't go and deal with that. There's usually the executive staff, his staff goes and deal with that. But that's the biggest change. And the biggest change for us is maintaining security. And you have to remain outside of the facility ground. They cannot come in the facilities ground in no time. They have to be outside. They can be right there on the road. They can be on the outside of the road. They just can't be on the grounds of the facility.
Are you talking about the press or anyone?
Yes, they can't come to the facility.
So that's why the prison. I always thought they did it for aesthetics. How the prison is like in the background. I just thought that was so they could get the view of the prison in there while they're doing the press conference or
Right.
something like that. But now I see. So the reason why the press conference is outside the gate is because you can't have the press
You
conference
can have the press
inside. And
inside.
why is that?
Security also is federal grounds, and we are they're totally different rules. You can walk all the way on the other side of the road all you want to. You just can't cross onto federal grounds. Once you're in federal grounds, well, now we have the rights to detain you or anything else and say different things. It's just a different rules. Outside of that, on the other side of the road, let's say, and we have a road in Butner, you can be on the road. You can be on the other side of the road. Um, you can take pictures. We gonna question it? Sure, why not? We're not gonna. I'm gonna question it. I've questioned guys, and they have me on YouTube for questioning those guys that come around and harass the police, and they do all that. And I was fantastic. Hey, y'all can stay here. I
Are you
told you.
talking about the First Amendment
Oh
auditors?
yeah, those guys that come and audit, but they can't cross into the ground. That's totally
Right.
different. They do that in New York all the time. They go and harass those guys because they can be on the sidewalks. They just can't step. There's a little line right there. They know they can't step beside that line. They can be on the sidewalk, but they can't step under the building. Once they step under the building, they are done.
I see the videos all the time. They push it. They're like, this is an easement. I'm allowed to stand here. And you explain to them a million times, like, you can take as many pictures as you want. You can do that, but please don't step over here. And they just want to get you boiled up so they can call you a tyrant.
That's all they want. They want to make you mad. The guy looked at me and said, "Well, you're pretty cool." I said, "You're not gonna make me mad. There's nothing you can do right now that's gonna make me upset."
My favorite one off topics is when they go to I'm so tired of the post office ones. They go to the post office and just are
Oh,
a nuisance. But you know what? You know what should happen when you guys get a First Amendment auditor at the prison? You're gonna say, you know what? Since you want to take pictures so bad, just come on in here. We'll put you in a cell and let you meet everybody.
no, hey, I just took pictures of them. That's what I did. You're like,
I'd,
oh,
I'd love for him to be in there and just be around everybody. So, but now another thing they do in some movies is when they're getting a high profile inmate is they address the inmates, right? They have the big speech where they address the inmates because a high profile inmates coming in. That doesn't happen either,
it,
does it?
it doesn't happen. I've never had that done, and we had some. And I'm thinking about we brought in my unit when I was a counselor. We had Randy the Duke Cunningham, which it was a senator from California. They got sentenced, and I looked it up back in 2005
Mhm.
for a whole bunch of other things. He had 30-month sentence, something like that, and we didn't make no big deal of him. And he was just another inmate, and he was a senator, and we treated him just the same. He was hoping, and he tried to get special treatment. We were like, let me. No, time out. You're really not that special. You here in prison. You're just another inmate at this moment. You might have been a senator, or you still might feel like that, but we didn't treat him as such. Especially to me, I felt like you're a senator. you kind of had a better life than most of these guys in prison. You knew better to do what you did to land you in prison. These guys, a lot of the guys that came to prison under the with the drug war and all the drug laws that put them in jail for 15, 20, 25, 30 years. I was like, most of the guys were just trying to survive. Some of them were criminals, really. I mean, some of them were just total criminals. But the majority of these guys that got arrested and got the longest time were just making a living surviving. Was it the wrong living? Yes, it was the wrong way to make the living. Did a lot of things come out wrong? Yes, but they were trying to make a living. Most of those, him, I didn't have the respect for that because he made a living. He was trying to be above and beyond and be above the law. And when you get to that point, it's like, okay, you knew better.
Well, you guys also can't treat them special because we talked about it in previous episodes. Once you compromise that and show other prisoners, and then they're like, wait a minute, I've been here for 15 years. You've never given me one thing. And this person comes in here and now you're doing this. That creates a
It
problem.
creates animosity.
Yeah. How do the, I don't want to say, well, real, I call them real inmates. How do the real inmates treat, like when you have someone, like you said, that's in there because they were in the drug game or any other major crime, and then you get someone like you're saying that's a senator that's mixed among them. How are they treated? How are high profile inmates treated by other inmates?
You know, it's they, they get treated as inmates, but they don't. They a lot of guys. Well, he came to a low security facility, so it's a little bit different.
Mhm.
These guys are not there trying to make example of him, or he's not in a penitentiary, which will be totally different. But there are a lot of guys who are very smart, or they want to be smart. They want to say, "Hey, what is it you doing, or can I do to better me to do what you were doing, but not get caught?"
That's what, you know what? That is the one part they do get right in movies where you see people trading secrets and talking about
But
prior. That's how sometimes they get hooked up. I because I watch a lot of true crime documentaries.
yeah,
I don't know how many times I see an inmate come to the police with information to get time knocked off, and not because they're in there, weaseling out somebody. They're just having a casual conversation about their schemes and exploits.
yeah, that's happened. That's another story. But
Mhm.
not just don't think about that. Everything they are going to learn is for it, it might be bad because like they I'm using Bernie as an example. A lot of those inmates went to Bernie and asked him a lot of questions about business and all that, and he gave him a lot of answers. There's a lot of people, some people out there trying to write these books and all this, and some of them are lying because Bernie did not mess with a lot of people, and a lot of people didn't mess with him. They wanted some information. They treated him nicely. He was an old man. He's already in almost 80s. Well, by the time he got to prison, he lived a good life. Okay, he lived in excellent. He was not mad. He was not a guy that you had to deal with. It. He was mad. He was being mean. No, he lived a great life. You know, he schemed his life. He did. He lived it to the max. So some of the guys want to know, but how to do what he was doing, but doing it right. He got caught because the market crashed. The only reason Bernie really got caught is because the market crashed and he wasn't able to cover his left hand with the right and couldn't able pass money more money because he lost money on both sides. That's how he lost. That's really what happened to him. If not, the scheme would have kept going on for till he passed away. But the market crashed. He lost money on both sides. He couldn't cover either or. He just couldn't cover nobody else. So he lost it. But a lot of guys came and asked him because he was very smart. He was business wise. Don't discredit Bernie. He was very smart. And a lot of times you get a lot of guys that come to prison and certain not at the same level that Bernie was, but some of these guys had created big schemes because they had the opportunity. It's because they weren't smart, and some of them gave inmates classes and other stuff like that, and investments and stuff, and how to do the right business, how to do the right thing. So that is what I'm saying, that you go in also and you learn from them on all these mistakes, and they try to make them better. A guy's
You
going
got
out, go
you guys
questions
got
all the time.
you guys got Bernie to teach a class. Is that what you're telling me?
I don't think Bernie did teach a class. I don't think he did. I know of some other guy that taught a class, and he was teaching a class in investments and real estate because he was a real good real estate. But what he did during the crash, he was selling properties like two, three, or four different people, the same property over and over and over again. I don't know
So
how many schemes and scams he had going on. He was making. He said, I'm
so
making
you
money."
guys have to give them a brief. Hey, I know you're in prison. You're going to use your expertise. We're going to have you teach these classes, but leave the crime stuff out of it.
And, and unbelievably, you will think, oh, but they don't. But most of the guys did leave the crime out of it. They wanted the guys, hey, go out and do the right thing. Okay, don't get caught. That was just a scheme. It worked out for me. Yeah, I ate good. He said, I ate steak every night, but now I'm in prison for the next 15, 20 years.
Yes, and like
So,
we said in the beginning, it's not like the movie. You guys weren't giving Bernie Madoff steaks and lobsters every
no,
night.
no.
Um, I can imagine. So that's somebody like a Bernie, and we're talking about like R. Kelly, who's a singer that comes with a different type of protocol. But let's talk about the other side of the extremes, because Bernie Madoff, that's Ponzi scheme. R. Kelly, he's an entertainer, not a big scare, right? But when you're getting someone, and I know you got him later, but let's talk about the magnitude of getting someone like a Unabomber or like a serial killer or someone of that nature. And I couldn't imagine getting someone like a Noriega in your prison. Like, 'cause
He would have had.
inmates treatment, I wonder how inmates treat somebody of that, a Pablo Escobar or a Noriega, someone of that stature, how an inmate treats them.
Well, a guy like Noriega, he would have been in a special unit with only a few people on the tier with him because we don't want him around other inmates because we don't know what's going to happen. We had one guy in we were standing in the TV room, and he was what it is a Witsick. He was under another name. And we were watching HBO, and they brought this case about Noriega and the invasion of Panama and
What do
all
you
that.
You said he was under another name?
Yeah, he was under alias in prison. This
Okay.
one of his head honchos, and we had him in prison as another name. And his picture comes up on TV with his real name, and he's sitting in the crowd of inmates, and he just looks up and everybody looked at him like, "That is you." And he just stood up, and I said, looked at him and said, "Come on, let's go," because I knew who he was. So we just walked him out, took him to the lieutenant's office. We escorted him outside. We put him in a housing unit, and a couple of days later, we transferred him away, and they changed his name again. But
That way, so wait, that's got to be surreal and kind of like everybody's like, wait a minute.
well, wait a minute, that's that guy with that name, and you're here, and we know you as you, yeah.
So is it two things that and I love asking these questions because I have no idea. So it's like just a normal person out here trying to ask these questions. Is it two reasons why you can't have someone like a Noriega or an Escobar around everybody for two reasons? One, threat of violence or death because of rivals, and two, because if they're around a bunch of people, they may continue doing their operations while in prison.
They could continue, which some have. Some of them we've had high end profile gang leaders that continue the business within the prison. We had to cut everything off, and they still get a lot of information. Or you don't, yeah, it, have no realization how
Resourceful.
resourceful and how good is the system for the inmates to get information from a prison out in California to a prison in Michigan or a prison back here in North Carolina. It might take a couple of days, but the information gets through when
I
they
mean,
want.
I believe you because there's stories of prisoners of war getting messages to prisoners at other prisoner of war camps. Uh,
And
So it's like you know, they all, what do we always say? We've said if certain people's creativity, if they would have used it in a different way, they'd be
Oh yeah,
winning.
we have
Um,
to decipher all kinds of letters all the time and
mhm.
messages and be reading because they embed messages and words and what they're saying, how they're saying it, and this is what they mean. So we have to be constant reading email. And now it's emails because
Yeah,
now inmates have emails. When I was a lot of time was just mail, but now they have email, they have mails, they got messages, so they send visitors through visitation comes in a lot of stuff. And a lot of times it's not just drugs, it's messages and information that
or
comes
cell
through.
phones. We've seen where they get those cell phones smuggled in there.
Yeah,
You
cell
know,
phones. Most likely, either they get cell phones get thrown over the fence a lot. Um, and some of them will get in through staff that have been compromised. That's the biggest way to get the cell phones in.
is
Usually,
the worry
it's usually not the inmates visitors because they go through too much to
security? Yeah, too
security
much.
to get it through. It's very difficult.
Is it? Are you more worried? Like you just talked about staff compromise. Is the sense of awareness for staff being compromised raised when it's a high profile? When there's high profile inmates versus if there's regular inmates?
Yes, yeah. That's why a guy like, let's say you bring a guy Pablo Escobar, they would have all that money and all that. He can compromise staff very easily or some high. That was the thing about having mobsters and mafia guys. I remember. I'm trying to think. I can't think of his name. Is this old mafia guy? He was in a wheelchair when he left. He went back to New York. I know he was in a wheelchair, but when he was with us, he was in a wheelchair. And he, I come in like the last days he was there, and he told, "Hey, how you doing, Lugo? It's good to see you again. Look at this, look at this." He shows me these photos. I got these photos with Frankie. This is Frankie. Frankie. You know, you look really, really, really good in a nice suit. I wish you come up to Brooklyn sometime and you come and see me. We'll get you dressed. You will love it. You'll just be treated. And he showed me these photos with him and Sinatra and some other people. And he left some stuff for the inmates. Listen, I'm going to leave this box. You give it away to the guys on the floor for them to have because I'm not taking this with me. But he was a mobster. He was a real mobster. I can't think of his name. I know he had been in movies and stuff like that, or his name has been in movies. We've had a few of those. I've had some of the. I had a group of mobster inmates. They were just always. The they had this game going on. And I think one day they all got mad because one kept winning and something they made them mad. And they were doing, but these are old guys by now. I mean, they're old guys.
Yeah.
I think the youngest guy was like 68. They are between 68 to 80 years old, and they're mobsters, and they arguing all that, and they were causing a lot of mess in the units and stuff like that. I had to get them all together. I remember the executive officer, Lugo, you got a good rapport with all Italian guys. Get them all together, see if we stop this nonsense because they are too old. I had to get them all in this big office and move them into an office and put them in, and we all sit in the guys and we all talk. They made friends again. They made good. Send them back. It was like they're like little kids, old little kids, just acting up because one didn't want to do this, the other one's doing this. They're crying. They were crazy, but they will do stuff. And I'm trying to think of one. There was a show. I don't know. You remember Mob Wives?
Yes. You know what? Before I lost my thought, gave me a flashback when you said wheelchair. One of my correction officer friends said they had a mobster guy that was in there for 22 years and he was in a wheelchair. Um, and the day he got released, when they rolled him to the gate, he got up and walked to the car.
It
The
probably
whole 22 years, he didn't walk.
gave
He
him
just
the
got.
finger too, probably.
And they were like, "Are you kidding me?" He's like, "I never said I couldn't walk. You guys put me in the chair when I came here. I just never got out of it."
Yeah, no, we had one. We had oh my god, one that made the news that he acted crazy
Mhm.
for years. I had him. I can't think of his name. They had him on the movies. The guy, the one with the robe, the mobster. They caught him with the robe. You can see him on when they arrested him. He was in a robe, acting crazy. He acted crazy all through. Well, we had him in prison and stuff, and in the wheelchair. Then when he got released, he stood up and left. Just it's the same thing. They do this. They know how to play the system and that crazy. It's the funniest thing. But the guy from the Mob Wives, his daughter was one of those ladies on the show, and you don't see the show no more. The show got
Mhm.
canceled. Discovery. I can't. I think was it Discovery or FX. I can't remember who was running the show. Um. So the mob came in. He came in and he wanted a piece of the earnings they were making because they thought they were. That's why you don't see the show no more. They canceled the show when the mob started messing with the producers and the director and the show and all that and trying to get a cut of the money. There was and like they said, no, forget it. We're not dealing with these ladies no more. They cut the show out. That's why they cut the show. It was
Ah,
funny because the guys, and they were in prison. Why they were in prison? I know they were in prison because he told me, hey, this is what we're doing. I said, you can't do that. Why'd you just, you're too old to be doing this. Why? Oh, because it's my name. They're using my name. And if they're using my name, they got to pay me for it. No, they don't. And they canceled the show. That's really why they canceled the show. They never said it, but that's why they canceled the show. Ma was behind it, trying to get money off of people. They were always doing little stuff. But I had a mobster that they brought in, and this is no joke. He was 72 when he finally got arrested, and he got under conspiracy to a murder and some other stuff. And this guy really have been um, done some crimes all his life, and you could see him in his eyes when I got him and interviewed him. And he was in his 70s. By then, he was 72 years old, and something in his eyes was like cold. And you looked at him and could tell if I cross this guy is still at 72 years old, he would not hesitate in killing you. I was like, wow, okay. But a few years later, he got cancer and he was dying. And that is the change, this incredible change in his face and his eye. He didn't have that emptiness in his eye. He was worried now, I'm dying. And he did tell me that. He came to my office and he spoke to me. I said, I'm dying. And now what? Nothing. I'm just gonna pay for everything I did.
hmm.
He was totally, yeah, now he was scared of death. When I first met him, that was like 4 years, 5 years later when he was sick. But when I first met him at 72 years old, you could see his eyes were just the look that he will give you was that look that, dude, if I cross him the wrong way right now, he will
He
kill
will
me.
kill you. Yeah.
Not hesitate. And but then 5 years later, when he was sick, you can see his eye has changed. It wasn't his face; it was all in his eyes. His eyes will say it. It just had changed, and I was
What do they always say? What's that cheesy line? The eyes is the windows to the soul.
yeah, it's cheesy, but it's so true. Those guys will. Many of we have so many of them that just and I met guys. They were just guys, and high profile inmates were just other inmates. We never really treated them between the inmates themselves. They had a lot of respect for these older guys. Yeah, there is a hierarchy for the inmates inside the inmate population. Yes, there is a hierarchy. They let some guys pass. Oh yeah, come on in. Um, Most inmates are not going to disrespect another inmate. They know their place. They also know what is so funny. They know where they're going to sit. You just don't sit anywhere. They got a few tables, and anybody sit. You got the guys. You got the blacks inmates sit here. The white inmates, the Hispanics sit over here. Some of the rich guys, the Italians got their table. Everybody sits a certain space at lunch. When that it starts to change, we are worried. We are worried because then the balance, something is changing, and we want to know why it's changing and why is the status quo not the same. Why the status quo is changing? Why are you over there when you're not supposed to be over there. You're supposed to be over here.
And it's not a thing like everybody aware. It's not a thing like you guys made it that they're segregated.
No, we don't.
It's the way thus it's always been. So it's not like you're looking at it like, hey, why is the black guy sitting with the white guy or the Hispanic guy sitting with the Italian? You guys aren't doing that. You're saying, wait a minute, they never sit over there. What's going on? What's about to happen?
Yes, we. That's one thing that we measure. And it's funny, like
Who
you
usually
talk.
screws that up? The new because when a new person comes, is there someone that because you guys don't tell them that like, hey, this is
No,
where you have to sit. The inmates probably there's an inmate that tells them that or gives them the tour.
usually is a new guy that never been to prison.
Mhm.
Is usually a guy that has nothing. That just don't have no street sense about what goes on the streets. He just got arrested because yeah, he went to the federal park. He was in the federal park drunk, urinating in public, doing something. Now he got a year of prison or
But
he's
you
never
gotta
been in trouble.
even if you've never been in prison, some people are just still not smart enough to read the room. I don't have to be in prison to walk in a building, and if I see certain people sitting at certain tables, I know okay, let me go over here.
But you have some kind of street sense, a street smart a
Uh,
little bit. Some people don't. Some people are very oblivious of it. We got staff that's oblivious of it. That they first they had to learn. I've had staff. Well, I've never been around people like this. How you ended up working? Well, I just got a degree. Ended up working in prison. Did some military time. Did some police work. Now, but this is totally different. A lot of police officers come to work to prison and be like, "Well, this is a totally different
This is
environment.
different. Yeah, this is
This
totally
is
different.
different."
So have you witnessed or have watched someone just come and just obliviously sit at the wrong table?
Oh yeah, and we were like, "Well, I'm just waiting to see." Usually
Because you can't tell them to move,
they
right?
tell now the inmates will tell them to move, or eventually one of us will don't do that again.
Mhm.
What you mean? Don't do it again. Come and see me this afternoon. We'll tell. Don't find your space, find your place. Because if not, your life is going to be hard in prison. It's not because we're going to make it harder. It's because these guys in here are going to make it harder for you. Or do I have to? Do I have to run with certain group? Do I have to be? No, we don't want you to be a gang member, but that's unavoidable. You got your people you're going to have to run with. You're going to have, you got your nerds. You guys are very nerdy. They go, okay, where do I should spend my time? If you want to go and stay out of the way, go to a library, stay out of the way, study, get your job there. Um, everybody goes to the kitchen. When I had them first, I sent them all to the kitchen. I think one guy I didn't send to the kitchen when I was a counselor. He came to my unit. This guy was 6 feet 7 inches, 300 pounds of pure muscle. He was just huge. He could have played in the NFL. He would have been incredible. But he was one of the gang leaders from Kansas City. And I said, "Nah, you know what? You're gonna be my orderly,
You're what?
my orderly." And the orderly is the guys that clean the units, that work in the units, that maintain, clean and stuff like that. And I said, "I need you because um, you can be my voice with some of these other guys inside the unit." And they had a lot of respect for him. He was this guy, a lot of the inmates that I dealt with, he was a true gangster. When you read his rap sheet, he had 3 murders from the state. He's done, he was a Crip. He's done all kinds of stuff. And he was huge. At 6'7", 300 pounds, he was a big guy. But he wanted to change. His biggest worry was his son. He had his son out of the neighborhood that he lived. His son lived with his football coach. He was getting through high school. His football coach was getting into college. He would talk to him on the phone. I would put him on the speaker. We would speak to his coach. We would speak to his son. He was trying to get his son um, away and make sure that he did not live the life that he lived. And that was to me was amazing. That he would not, he tried to do everything that he could to push his son away from all the craziness he had lived with. And he was doing. And his son was a big kid too. I can't remember his son's name.
Yeah, some people don't. understand that everybody in that life doesn't want that life for their kids.
No, no, no,
Yeah.
they don't. They don't. Some of the kids just take it. Oh, because I want to be this, and he was like, "No, I will not allow you to be that.
Mhm.
I want this is what you're going to do." And he put the fear of God on a lot of people. But
You ever get the, and I know you have, that's why I ask you, if you have a story about the inmate that comes and just says, "Screw this crap, I'm going to do whatever." You know, they've never been in. No, I'm not doing that crap. I'm going to do what I'm going to do. Yeah, I know it doesn't last long, but
I had one kid that tried that. He came in. He was from California. He was a white kid. He had been in some of the gangs out in California. He tried to be a little bit badass and all that. And I said, and he came in the office and he tried a lot, man, sit down before I just smash you. And you're going to do them. He came a couple of days later, he wasn't going to do that. He wasn't going to do this. I said, you're going to do it because I'm going to make you do it. And if you don't do it, I'm going to make your life impossible. He took a couple of days, but he came back around. He said, you know what? I'll be okay. I'm going,
now that's with you, right? And I get that. I'm talking about because a friend
oh,
of mine. I'm talking about when the inmates have to explain to them that's just not going to way. That's not the way it's going to work.
oh, no. Yeah, we've had that. We had one guy that came in. No, this is talk about that big guy again.
Mhm.
Okay. Now we had one guy that tried that, and I remember him. And by then I was a lieutenant, and so this guy comes in. He's also a Crip from I can't remember where he came from, but they have each gang do have a regulations and stuff between them that they have to do this. They wasn't even supposed to be doing. He came in and he told some of the guys, "Hey, we're supposed to be doing this. We're supposed to be doing that. We're not doing this. Well, why you guys are not doing that? Why are we not doing this?" And he tried to push some things along. And I have put him with a cellmate that I thought they would get along, and they got along, but he kept pushing the other guy to do things. He was like, "Listen, we're here. We're not rocking the boat. We like it where we at. We don't have. I don't have to carry a shiv with me. I don't have to be stabbing. Nobody's trying to kill me here. Um, I'm living in peace. You're trying to rock the boat. You're going the wrong way." So they started arguing, and they got in a fight. And the other guy, the guy that came in, he was new. Him been there about 30 days, or probably a month. The other guy's been there for a few years. He got the best of the new guy. He got mad and he went and mouthed at some of the other guy, another crip, and so he smacked him around too. Then he came up to the big guy. He tried to jump the big guy. He hit him once and knocked him out. So finally, they got him in. They called me from the office. The staff called me. "Hey, can you come up here?" Blah blah blah. This guy up here ranting. He got all these bump on his heads and stuff like that. So I go up there to get him and say, "Why don't you come on, turn around, let me cuff you up. We're gonna walk out of here and we're gonna talk." No, you ain't cuffing me up. You're not doing. He's joking to me, and I said, "All right, don't worry about it. Let's walk out the door." As soon as I walk out the door, I lock the door. I said, "Turn around, cuff up." He didn't cuff up. I just picked him up, put him on the ground. We cuffed him up. Old guys, everybody jumped. Then I talked to the other inmates, and the inmates told me this is what happened, and that's how I knew how the chronicle of things happened. And I said, "Well, I'm going to lock him up, but he got beat. Somebody else is going to get locked up." And the guy that was his roommate, he rose his hand and said, "I'll go. I'll take the blame for everybody." Because he got assaulted by two other
Yeah,
guys.
and that'll get you some respect too.
And he said, "All right, let's go." He got, he went. I know he never came back. The other guys were there. This new guy, he never came back. He said I beat him up. He said I dragged him down the steps, and that's how he got all his bumps. I said, "No, nobody was there. We never dragged you down the steps. We carried you down the steps. We actually carried him. We carried him up
So he
downstairs."
never went back to that unit.
No, he never went back. We took him to medical. Then we locked him up. He never came back to the institution. I don't know what happened
What do
to
you
him.
mean you locked him up? He's
We
already
put him in
locked
the. We put him in. Wait, when we say lock him up, and that's a good question. When we say we lock him up, we have a jail within the prison. We have a special housing unit, which is an administrative detention unit also. When we put them in administrative detentions because you've broken the rules, you go in there. This is where they call the solitary confinement. Oh, you're in here in a 12 by 12 by 8, something like that, and you're in solitary confinement. You only can come. That's where the solitary confinement come from. But it is an administrative detention. We have to put them somewhere. We can't put them back in regular population. This is why they go into everybody think, oh, solitary confinement. No, it's an administrative detention. It's a management system for us. Inmates don't like it because you're locked up in this little cell, probably with one other guy that you might not like, and it's kind of it got all kinds of story from there. But just being there, you are confined and space is small. It's different. Some people really, I couldn't do it. Personally, I could not be locked up for that long in there in this little room for 24 hours, for 23 hours a day. You can come out 1 hour a day and come back in. No, I can't do it. Couldn't do it. Well, anytime you go out, is just take a shower, come back in, you eat, you do everything in
And
there.
there's a limit on how long somebody can be in solitary
They
confinement.
put a limit.
Back in the day, there were no limits, and people used to lose their damn minds.
Yeah, there
Um,
were points. There were no limits. We try to limit it because you go there for administrative detention, but we can play with the administrative detention. Then we got them in front of our system, and we got to okay. Now you have a sentence of 30 days, 60 days, whatever, being in confinement. Now we move you to detention. Yeah, now this is detention.
60 days of solitary confinement. Sheesh.
And it's not. You're not solitary. Solitary confinement makes you think, well, I'm not talking to nobody. You got somebody across from you. These guys communicate really like you see it in the movies. These guys are really good at communicating, doing what is called
Well,
force.
solitary confinement in the movie makes it seem like you're in not even a 12 by, you're in a 6 by whatever
Yeah,
level,
it seems.
and it's dark, and there's a slit in the door about that big, and that's the
Oh,
only light
it's a
that
little bit.
comes
There is
through.
a slit on the door, but it's a little bit bigger. That's where we pass the food in. They're
Yeah.
good at sending messages. Oh, this is. They have a system. They create these little with milk cartons or whatever, and they tie them with strings, and they make strings out of the mattresses. They pull the string out, and they put it. They throw it from one room to another. Hey, slide this to the room next to me, and the guy he slides it across over there, and the guy slides it over. Now they're communicating or passing stuff back and forth. It used to be cigarettes and drugs to get passed out like that, but we kind of control that a little bit. But it's still got. It's just I would stand in the hallway and just watch them do it.
Just watch
Just,
for the
just
communicate.
watch
Just
it.
watch
They
the
didn't know.
zip
They
back and
didn't know I
forth.
was watching. They didn't know I was watching. I just watch them pass it from one cell to another, and it seems like a little mouse going from one side to another. And they pass it to the other guy, and they communicate. Hey, here it comes. They're talking. I'm just watching because it's also interesting to see how creative we can be as human beings to communicate, to do the things that we do, right or wrong. It doesn't matter. It's just so interesting to see the complexity of a human trying to survive because this is survival. If you don't think it's survival, and I just love watching that. I just used to watch that communications and stuff like that between them. Sometimes I will stop them. Being in the housing unit as an officer, I will do the same thing. I will watch inmates. I will
Oh,
walk with keys in
I
my
think
pocket.
you do it like anything else. They said if you could probably find something, do something every day, but you learn how to pick your battles.
Yeah, you learn how to pick your battles. You definitely do.
You could literally catch somebody doing something every single second of the day if you wanted. It's like let's pick our battles. They ain't going anywhere. They're in prison. We just make sure they're not out of control.
Mhm.
Uh,
You pick your battles. You don't, as long as nobody's killing each other or something like that. That's the worst. The worst thing is death.
I'll use a
Somebody.
prime example. The way movies have it, or even some of my friends who are correction officers at state prisons will tell you the story that you gave about the guy getting a fight with three different people. There are places where that correction officer comes in and goes, he's locking up everybody. Like everybody's getting manhandled, everybody's getting locked up. But you come in there and say, listen, guys, there's a giant fight. I got to do a report. somebody else has to go to jail. Somebody else has to get locked up. Who's it going You guys pick. Who's it going to be? Now you've got what you need. You got the perpetrator locked up. You got somebody who was the aggressor that said I was the aggressor locked up. Reports closed. Everybody else go back to what you were doing.
Everybody's happy. But now I've had that situation that nobody. Well, we don't know. We don't know. I have no idea. All right, y'all going. Everybody's going. Everybody's going. Nobody's snitching. That's fine. I understand nobody's snitching, but I got to lock each and one of you.
Right. Because
I have no idea.
I guess just turn. What is the thing you used to always say? Hey, if I catch you, that's it. I mean, if you guys are doing something, you're doing it. But like my favorite one from you is the guy that you had the line outside his cell and he was cooking sandwiches or something. And you said, because now half the people got their sandwich. You knew as a smart officer, if you stop him right then and there, you're going to have 9 pissed off inmates,
Oh yeah.
right? So you went in there and you said, listen, finish them up, get everybody their sandwich, and then bring me this because you can't have it. That's like the smart way to do it. You don't have to go in there and swing your stick and go,
No,
everything is shut down.
because I've had another officer do that one time. Something similar to that. He got punched in the face.
Mm.
Now he got to go home, solve this. He got punched in the face. You got to go to the hospital. You got to do all this. You still got paperwork. You got people locked up. Now they're gonna, just create a whole. I don't want to get punched in the face. I don't want to get punched in the face. I know I can handle myself, but I don't want to get punched. I don't want to get in a fight.
It also makes sense. It's not you didn't tell him to do it because you're being soft or you're being sweet. You're like, if 9 prisoners got their sandwich and you're the guy that cuts the other 9 off, now you're not only getting punched in the face, you got 9 prisoners pissed off at you.
No, no, no. They respect. They usually they respect that.
Yeah.
But high profile inmates that we had. I remember Randy Duke Cunningham, Bernie Madoff. We got in Jesse Jackson Jr. at one time. Also, Jesse Jackson's son came to prison back in 2000, and I wrote it down 2013. That we received them. That was another guy. He was high profile. When I first began, I'm trying to think. Jim Baker.
Oh,
You remember Jim Baker?
yes.
Right. So I come. This is my first day at work, and back then Jim Baker had a big following, and they had moved him around a couple times. He was in Butner, and to avoid the cameras from them, they had the cameras next morning because I saw the cameras when I left work that morning. But I came in at midnight. It was my first time working. And down the hallway, when I'm walking into work, they bring in the U.S. Marshals are bringing Jim Baker out, and I'm like, oh, where's he? Oh, that's Jim Baker. They taking him out tonight at midnight. And I was like, oh, that was my first encounter with a high profile I made my first day at work. So Jim Baker. We've had other guys, high profile inmates. I don't think you ever heard of Jonathan. You've heard of Jonathan Pollard. He was the Navy spy from Israel. He was Israel. He's in Israel right now, I think. They gave him a citizenship, and we had to deal with him and the Israelis and all that. They come into Butner a couple times, and they had interviews. They interviewed him several times. And if you ever go to the Spy Museum in Washington, D.C., if
Mhm.
you go up there, I was like, when first they opened up, I went in and like, I know that guy, I know that guy, I know that guy, I know that guy. With my kids, I know that guy, I know that guy, I see that guy. Yeah, he just left. About half of the inmates and spies in the spy museum have been through Butler.
Why is but so what makes but I'm sure there's federal prisons all over the country and they give you a high profile and I guess I'm just paying attention to it because I'm in North Carolina. Uh, but Butler's not the only federal prison in North Carolina, correct?
No, Butner is the only federal prison in North
It
Carolina.
is?
Yes,
Okay.
that is the only.
Ah,
We have the closest one will be Petersburg in Virginia. That's the closest one, and then we have other ones in South Carolina.
so do you get them based on their location or what? Like everybody that's on the
Usually, what
coast.
happens is we try to keep an inmate within 500 miles of his residency.
Oh,
That's
so that would because when you release them, it's easier to
it's
get
not
them.
easier. We still, even though you're in prison, it's a lot easier for us to um, create a better environment for the prisoner if he has somebody to visit them.
Gotcha.
When he's from North Carolina, he's out in uh,
California, it's not going to happen.
California is not going to happen. It's very difficult, but it does happen. Maybe we can't have him over here because whatever his crime, his his relationship, his points, and all kinds of things, we might have to send him out to California. We might have to put him somewhere else away from family that he doesn't have those visitations. But we do want him to be close enough to the family. That's why we usually keep him within the 500-mile range and try to keep him in that zone so we can have him. It can change. It all depends on what he does and doesn't do, but we usually try to have him in there. We want him to have um, visitations. We want him to have those relationships with their families. We do want that. It makes it a lot easier. Butner is just a lot of people want to staff love to work in Butner because Butner is kind of unique and is different. A lot of people it's just a great stepping stone in their career to work in Butner. Um, if you make a big career of it, yeah, you want to maybe have the chance to work in different penitentiaries, and all kinds of prisons across United States and different places. But Butner's kind of unique overall on the way staff deal with inmates is just different. When I've been to other prisons, it's not the same relationship. It's not the same. It's something we you can't pinpoint it, but it's something different about Butner and the staff that's there. So
Awesome.
yeah, and that was yeah. Those are there isn't much big treatment. Even when they come to get to the visitor room, they were treated the same. They still get the same. They get stripped when they come in. They get stripped when they leave they leave the visiting room. So it doesn't matter who they are; they get pretty much treated the same way. So being high profile inmate, being famous had nothing to do with it. No, we treat them. Hey, man, I know you and stuff like that. Oh, you are Kelly. That's cool. We have you here. We've had other people in there. Um, Parents of rappers. I can't think of his name. He's from Atlanta. His dad was in prison for a long time
Mhm.
with us and some other guys. So yeah, we've dealt quite a bit with it. So
Hmm.
well, um, we are coming to the end of episode 5 for us this year. We are looking forward to what we have coming up in the next few weeks. Um, we'll be bringing in hoping to bring some staff as well that's retired.
It's fine.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, my math isn't always great. I had to count. I had to use my fingers.
it is. Okay. And but that's all we have for today. Keone, you got any last words for us?
Yeah. Goodbye.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Keone. Thank you everyone for being here today. Thank you for listening to us. We were just talking about high profile inmates. If you have any comments, questions, please do send an email to onthecount.podcast@gmail.com. We are there, or just leave us some comments. We would love to hear any comments back from the viewers. Thank you so much. Keone, anything? If not, goodbye. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye, everybody.